Captain Jaiwan checked the contract details one more time. The numbers looked good. Very good, actually. The Velkari Coalition was offering triple the standard rate for what appeared to be basic life support repairs. She leaned back in her chair aboard the repair vessel's steady hand and wondered why anyone would pay so much for simple work. "T-Min, come look at this," she called to her chief engineer. T-Min walked over, wiping grease from his hands. He had just finished servicing their own ship's engines. He looked at the screen and whistled low. "That's a lot of credits for replacing some air filters and patching a few lines." "That's what I thought too," Jaiwan said. "But the Velkari don't usually exaggerate or lie. If they say it's routine repairs, it probably is." "Maybe they're just rich and don't care about money," Dong Hyan suggested from across the small bridge. The young technician was always optimistic about everything. Hana, their medic, looked up from her supply inventory. "Or maybe they need it done fast and are willing to pay extra for speed. We're the closest human repair crew in this sector." Jaiwan made her decision. "We'll take it. Plot a course to Research Station Gamma 7. Let's see what the Velkari need fixed." The journey took 3 days. During that time, Jaiwan tried to contact the station several times. Each attempt went unanswered. That wasn't unusual for research stations deep in their work, but it made her uncomfortable. Something felt wrong. When the steady hand finally approached the coordinates, T-Min gasped. "Captain, you need to see this." The station appeared on their view screen. Jaiwan felt her stomach drop. Research Station Gamma 7 was not just damaged, it was nearly destroyed. The main habitat ring had multiple hull breaches. Debris floated around the structure like a cloud of metal snow. Several sections were completely dark, with no power signatures at all. "That's not routine repair work," Dong Hyan said quietly. "No, it's not," Jaiwan agreed. She activated the communication system again. "Research Station Gamma 7, this is the human repair vessel Steady Hand. We received your contract request. Please respond." Silence. She tried again. "Station Gamma 7, please respond. We are here to help." Still nothing. Hana moved to stand beside Jaiwan's chair. "Do you think anyone is still alive in there?" "Only one way to find out," Jaiwan said. "T-Min, scan for life signs." The engineer worked his controls, his face growing more worried with each passing second. "I'm detecting life signs. They're all concentrated in one small section of the station. Looks like the secondary research lab. But Captain, their power levels are critical. Life support is barely functioning." Jaiwan stood up. "Everyone suit up. We're doing an emergency boarding. Hana, bring medical supplies. These people will need help." The crew moved quickly. They had trained for emergency rescues, though they usually dealt with broken machines, not broken stations full of dying researchers. Within minutes, they were sealed in their suits and ready. The steady hand docked carefully with one of the intact airlocks. The connection was shaky, but it held. T-Min checked the seal 3 times before declaring it safe. They entered the station. The corridors were dark and cold. Their suit lights cut through the blackness, showing walls scarred by fire and explosion. Something had hit this station hard. "What could have done this?" Dong Hyan asked as they moved forward. "Meteor strike, probably," T-Min said, examining the damage patterns. "Looks like it hit the power core section and caused cascading failures throughout the station." They followed the life signs to a sealed door. Jaiwan knocked. "Hello, this is a human repair crew. We're here to help you." For a long moment, nothing happened. Then the door cracked open slightly. A thin beam of dim light spilled out. A face appeared in the gap. It was a Velkari, tall and gray-skinned, with large dark eyes that looked exhausted. "You came," the Velkari said. The voice was flat, emotionless, as if the speaker had used up all feeling long ago. "Of course we came," Jaiwan said. "You sent for repairs, may we come in?" The Velkari opened the door wider. Inside, the humans found 12 more Velkari huddled in a room meant for 6. The air was stale and thin. Emergency lights gave barely enough illumination to see. The researchers looked like they hadn't slept in days. Hana immediately began checking them for injuries and illness. Most were malnourished and suffering from oxygen deprivation. The Velkari who had opened the door stepped forward. "I am Thex, senior researcher of this station. You should not have come. It is too late." "Too late?" Jaiwan asked. "You're all still alive. It's never too late." Thex's expression didn't change. "The station is damaged beyond our ability to repair. We calculated that survival probability is 0.03%. We have been waiting for death for 72 hours since we sent the distress beacon." Jaiwan stared at him. "You've been waiting to die for 3 days." "Yes," Thex said simply. "It is the logical response to impossible circumstances." Min looked at Jaiwan with disbelief. Dong Haiyan shook his head. Hana continued treating the Velkari, but her jaw was tight with anger. Jaiwan stepped closer to Thex. "Well, here's the thing about humans. We don't accept impossible. We didn't come here to watch you die. We came here to fix things. And that's exactly what we're going to do." "You do not understand," Thex said. "We are scientists. We calculated every possible solution. None work, the mathematics are clear." "Maybe your mathematics don't account for human stubbornness," Jaiwan said. She turned to her crew. Min, Dong Haiyan, start assessing what needs to be fixed. Hana, keep these people alive and comfortable. We've got work to do. Thex watched as the humans began moving with purpose, pulling out tools and scanners. "You will fail," he said. Jaiwan smiled. "Probably, but we're going to try anyway. That's what humans do." As her crew spread out to begin emergency repairs, Jaiwan looked at the exhausted Velkari researchers. They had given up because their numbers told them to. They had accepted death because logic demanded it. But humans didn't work that way. Humans fought even when the odds said they shouldn't. She didn't know if they could save this station, but she knew they would die trying before they gave up. And somehow, looking at the faces of these defeated researchers, she thought that maybe the real repair work had nothing to do with machines at all. The Velkari had been waiting for death. The humans had arrived offering something else entirely, something the Velkari had forgotten existed. Hope. Min moved through the damaged corridors of Research Station Gamma 7, with Dong Haiyan close behind. Their helmet lights swept across buckled walls and exposed wiring. The meteor strike had torn through the station like a knife through paper. "This is worse than I thought," Min said, making notes on his datapad. "The primary power core is offline. Life support is running on emergency batteries that should have died 2 days ago." "How are they still alive?" Dong Haiyan asked. "They're not really living," Min said quietly. "They're just not dead yet. There's a difference." Back in the sealed research lab, Hana worked on the Velkari researchers. She had set up a portable oxygen concentrator from the Steady Hands medical supplies. The Velkari breathed easier now, but their bodies showed signs of days without proper food or water. "When did you last eat?" Hana asked Thex. The Velkari thought for a moment. 4 days ago. We rationed our remaining supplies, but they ran out 40 hours ago." Hana pulled out nutrition packets from her kit. "Here, eat these slowly. Your stomachs aren't ready for much." Thex took the packet but didn't open it. "You are wasting your supplies. We will not survive long enough to need them." "Let me worry about that," Hana said firmly. She moved to the next Velkari, a younger one who looked even more exhausted than the others. "What's your name?" "Fen," the young researcher said. The voice was weak. "Well, Fen, you're going to eat something right now," Hana said gently. "Doctor's orders." Jaiwan entered the lab carrying a portable power unit. "Good news. We can boost your life support for at least another week. That gives us time to work on permanent repairs." "There can be no permanent repairs," Thex said. "The damage is too extensive. We calculated." I know what you calculated, Jaiwan interrupted. But T-Min is looking at the damage right now. Let's wait to see what he says before we give up. T-Min's voice crackled over the radio. Captain, can you come to the power core section? I need you to see something. Jaiwan made her way through the dark corridors. She found T-Min and Dong Haiyan standing in what used to be the main engineering bay. The meteor had struck directly here. Equipment was melted and twisted. The main reactor housing had a hole the size of a person torn through it. Tell me you can fix this, Jaiwan said. T-Min pointed to the damage. The reactor itself is intact. That's good news. But the housing is destroyed, coolant systems are gone, and half the power distribution network is melted. By any standard engineering practice, this station is a total loss. But, Jaiwan asked, she knew her engineer well enough to hear the unspoken word. But we're not standard engineers, T-Min said with a small smile. If we ignore about a dozen safety regulations and use parts in ways they weren't designed for, I think we can jury-rig something. How long? Jaiwan asked. A week, maybe more, and that's if everything goes right. Dong Haiyan spoke up. Captain, there's something else. The Velkari keep saying they calculated that repairs were impossible. I've been looking at their calculations. They're not wrong. By their methods, this station can't be saved. Then we use our methods, Jaiwan said simply. They returned to the research lab. Thex watched them enter with his flat, emotionless expression. The station can be repaired, Jaiwan announced. It will take time, but we can do it. Impossible, Thex said. Show me your calculations. We don't have calculations, Jaiwan said. We have a plan and the determination to try. Thex stood up slowly. That is not logical. Without mathematical verification, how can you know success is possible? We don't know, Jaiwan admitted. But not knowing we'll succeed doesn't mean we shouldn't try. The concept seemed to confuse every Velkari in the room. They looked at each other, then back at the humans. Fen, the young researcher, spoke up. You will attempt repairs even though you cannot calculate the probability of success. Yes, Hana said from where she was treating another Velkari. That's exactly what we'll do. Why? Fen asked. The question sounded genuinely curious. Dong Haiyan sat down on the floor near the young Velkari. Because you need help. Because giving up feels wrong. Because maybe we'll succeed even if the math says we won't. Over the next few hours, the humans began emergency repairs. T-Min worked on restoring partial power to more sections of the station. Dong Haiyan crawled through maintenance tunnels to access damaged systems. Hana kept the Velkari stable and improving. Jaiwan discovered something interesting. The station's galley and food processors were in a damaged but repairable section. According to priority protocols, they should focus on life support and power first. But she looked at the exhausted, hopeless Velkari and made a different choice. T-Min, can you get power to the galley? She asked over the radio. The galley, Captain, there are more critical systems. Can you do it? Jaiwan repeated. There was a pause. Yes, it'll take a few hours, but I can reroute power there. Do it, Jaiwan said. Thex overheard the conversation. He approached Jaiwan. That is inefficient. Food preparation is low priority. You should repair critical systems first. People need more than oxygen and power, Jaiwan said. They need to feel alive. A hot meal does that. That is not logical. Maybe not, Jaiwan agreed, but it's human. 6 hours later, T-Min got the galley power restored. The food processors hummed to life. Hana helped the Velkari move to the galley area. It was the first time they had left their sealed refuge in 3 days. Jaiwan used the processors to create a simple but hot meal. The smell of cooking food filled the space. She watched the Velkari researchers' expressions change. For the first time since the humans arrived, something other than resignation appeared on their faces. They sat together at the galley tables. The Velkari ate slowly at first, then with more energy. The hot food seemed to wake something inside them. Conversation started, quiet at first, then growing stronger. Fen looked at Hana. This is good. We had forgotten what hot food tastes like. Food always tastes better when you eat it together, Hana said. Thex watched his fellow researchers. Something had shifted in the room. The heavy weight of despair had lifted slightly. He looked at Jaiwan. You chose to repair the galley before critical systems. This violates every emergency protocol. Your protocols had you waiting to die, Jaiwan said gently. Maybe our way is different, but look at your people now. Do they look like they're ready to give up? Thex looked around the table. The Velkari were sitting straighter. Their voices were stronger. Some were even making small gestures that might have been the Velkari version of smiles. No, Thex admitted, they do not. That's because we're not just repairing your station, Jaiwan said. We're repairing your hope, and that starts with reminding you what it feels like to be alive. For the first time, Thex's emotionless mask cracked slightly. I do not understand humans, but I am grateful you came. Save the gratitude, Jaiwan said with a smile. We've still got a lot of work to do, but at least now we're all doing it on full stomachs. As the meal continued, T-Min pulled Jaiwan aside. Captain, I found the main damage reports. The reactor situation is worse than I thought. We don't have the parts we need to fix it properly. Can we improvise? Jaiwan asked. Maybe, but the chance of failure is high. Jaiwan looked at the Velkari researchers eating their first real meal in days. Then, we'd better make sure we don't fail, because I'm not going to tell them they waited to die just to die anyway. T-Min nodded. Understood, I'll find a way. That was the difference between humans and Velkari, Jaiwan thought. The Velkari calculated their chances and accepted the math. Humans looked at impossible odds and decided to try anyway. Sometimes, that made all the difference. The next morning, Jaiwan gathered everyone in the now-functioning galley. The Velkari researchers looked better after a night of improved oxygen and real food. Their gray skin had more color. Their eyes seemed clearer. We need to talk about priorities, Jaiwan said. She pulled up a holographic display showing the station's damage. T-Min has assessed everything. The good news is we can restore basic functions. The bad news is the main reactor needs parts we don't have. Thex stood up. Then we must evacuate. Your ship can carry all of us. We will abandon the station and our research. What research? Donghayan asked. Fen answered. We have been studying atmospheric purification methods. Our home colonies suffer from a rare disease caused by toxic compounds in the air. This research could save thousands of lives. How close are you to finding a cure? Hana asked. Very close, another Velkari researcher said. But all our data is stored in the station's main computer cores. If we abandon the station, the data will be lost. Why not copy it to portable storage? T-Min asked. The data is too vast, Thex explained. It would take weeks to transfer, and our portable storage devices were destroyed in the meteor strike. The only way to preserve the research is to save the station. Jaiwan looked at her crew. She could see the same determination in their eyes that she felt. Then we save the station. Captain, Thex said firmly, I have explained this. The mathematics show it is impossible. The reactor cannot be repaired without replacement parts that would take months to arrive. We have perhaps 1 week of emergency power remaining. The calculation is simple. You keep talking about calculations, Jaiwan said, but you're missing something important. Humans don't always follow the math. Sometimes we make things work anyway. That is illogical, Thex insisted. Maybe, Jaiwan agreed, but we're doing it anyway. T-Min, what's your impossible plan? The engineer pulled up technical diagrams. The reactor housing is destroyed. Normally, we'd need specialized materials that are manufactured on only 3 planets in the galaxy. We don't have time for that. but the station's outer hull is made from similar alloys. If we cut sections from the undamaged parts of the hull and weld them together, we might be able to create a new housing. Might, Thex asked. What is the probability of success? Maybe 12%, T-Min admitted. And the probability of catastrophic failure? About 67%. The Velkari researchers all started speaking at once, their voices filled with alarm. Thex raised his hand for silence. You propose a plan that will almost certainly destroy what remains of our station and possibly kill us all. This is unacceptable. Doing nothing means certain failure, Jaiwan said. At least this way we have a chance. A 12% chance, Thex said. Better than zero, Dong Haiyan pointed out. Thex shook his head. I cannot authorize such risk. We will evacuate. And let thousands of your people die from the disease you're trying to cure, Hana asked quietly. Your research could save them. Is that acceptable? Thex's face remained emotionless, but his voice wavered slightly. It is the logical choice. We cannot save them if we are dead. Jaiwan stepped closer to the Velkari leader. Thex, I understand you're scared. You've calculated every risk and every outcome. But here's what you haven't calculated. You haven't measured human determination. You haven't factored in what happens when people refuse to accept defeat. And you definitely haven't accounted for what my crew can do when lives are on the line. Your determination does not change the laws of physics, Thex said. No, but it changes what we're willing to try, Jaiwan said. Look, we're going to attempt this repair whether you authorize it or not. The only question is whether your people will help us or hide in that sealed room again. Thex was silent for a long moment. Finally, he spoke. If I agree to this and we fail, we all die. If we don't try, people die anyway, Jaiwan said. At least this way we go down fighting. Something shifted in Thex's expression. It wasn't quite emotion, but it was close. Very well, we will assist, but I want it noted that I believe this plan will fail. Noted, Jaiwan said with a smile. Now let's get to work. Over the next 3 days, the station became a hive of activity. T-Min directed the cutting of hull sections. The work was dangerous. One mistake could cause explosive decompression, but the humans worked with steady hands and calm focus. The Velkari watched in amazement. Dong Haiyan cut through metal that should have been impossible to cut with their portable tools, but he adjusted the angles and power settings in ways that shouldn't have worked but did. Fen approached Hana while she was helping to move cut sections of hull. How do your people do this? The tools you use are not designed for this purpose, yet you succeed. Hana paused in her work. We improvise. When the right tool isn't available, we use what we have and make it work. But the specifications say. Fen, specifications are guidelines, not absolute rules, Hana explained. Sometimes you have to trust your instincts and try things that shouldn't work. Sometimes they do anyway. Fen looked thoughtful. We are not taught to work this way. We follow procedures and protocols. If something falls outside those parameters, we calculate whether it is possible before attempting it. And if the calculation says it's impossible, Hana asked, then we do not attempt it. And that's why you were sitting in that room waiting to die, Hana said gently. Sometimes you have to try even when the math says no. On the 4th day of repairs, disaster nearly struck. Dong Haiyan was welding a section of the new reactor housing when a power surge caused a small explosion. The blast threw him backward. His suit protected him from serious injury, but he hit his head hard. Hana rushed to check him. The other humans stopped working, concerned for their teammate. The Velkari gathered around, their large eyes wide with alarm. I'm okay, Dong Haiyan said, sitting up slowly. His forehead was bleeding slightly, but the suit had sealed the wound. Just got surprised, that's all. You need to rest, Hana said firmly. Not happening, Dong Haiyan replied. He stood up, wincing slightly. We've got work to finish. You were just thrown several meters by an explosion, Thex said. You should stop working. The logical choice is to rest and recover. Dong Haiyan laughed. Probably, but we don't have time for logical choices. We have a reactor to rebuild. He picked up his welding tool and went back to work. The Velkari stared at him in disbelief. He is injured, one researcher said. Why does he continue? Because the work matters more than his pain, Jaiwan said. That's the human way. Fen approached T-Min as the engineer was calculating stress points on the new housing. Your crewmate was hurt. You did not stop working. Why? T-Min looked up from his work. Because stopping means failure. Dong Haiyan knows that. He'll rest when the job is done, not before. This is difficult to understand, Fen admitted. I know, T-Min said. But here's the thing. Humans don't just calculate whether something is worth doing. We feel it. Your research will save lives. That feeling, that knowledge, drives us forward even when we're hurt or tired or scared. Slowly, something changed in the Velkari researchers. They stopped just watching and started helping. They couldn't do the heavy technical work, but they organized tools, carried materials, and monitored systems. They stopped calculating whether each action would succeed and just acted. By the end of the 5th day, the new reactor housing was complete. It was ugly, made from mismatched hull sections welded together in patterns that violated every design standard. But it was solid. It would work. T-Min stood back and looked at their creation. It's the most beautiful, horrible thing I've ever built. Thex examined the housing carefully. This should not function. The materials are wrong. The design is inefficient. The probability of success remains very low. And yet here it is, Jaiwan said, ready to install. Thex looked at the captain. You humans are either very brave or very foolish. Usually both, Jaiwan said with a grin. That's what makes us human. Installing the new reactor housing was the most dangerous part of the entire repair. One mistake would cause the reactor to overload. The explosion would destroy what remained of the station and kill everyone aboard. T-Min called a meeting before they began. I won't lie to you. This is extremely risky. If anyone wants to evacuate to the steady hand while we do this, I understand completely. The 3 other humans shook their heads. Hana spoke for them all. We started this together. We finish it together. Thex stood. The Velkari will also remain. If the humans are brave enough to risk their lives for our research, we cannot be cowards who hide while they work. This isn't about bravery, Jaiwan said. This is about smart risk management. If something goes wrong, then we all face it together, Fen interrupted. The young Velkari looked different now. The hopeless exhaustion was gone. In its place was something new, determination. Jaiwan nodded slowly. All right then, everyone to your stations. T-Min, you're in charge of the installation. The rest of us will follow your instructions exactly. No improvising this time. Understood, Captain, T-Min said. He pulled up the installation procedures on multiple displays so everyone could see. We need to move slowly and carefully, one step at a time. The work began. T-Min and Dong Haiyan used magnetic lifters to position the improvised housing around the reactor core. Every movement had to be precise. A single bump could damage the delicate reactor systems. The Velkari researchers monitored every sensor reading. They called out measurements and warnings. Despite their logical nature, they had learned to work with human methods. They didn't just report problems. They suggested solutions. Temperature rising in Section 3, one Velkari announced. I see it, Dong Haiyan replied, adjusting coolant flow. That is not standard procedure, the Velkari said. I know, Dong Haiyan said calmly, but it will work, trust me. The Velkari hesitated, then nodded. I trust you. Those 3 words shocked Thex. His people did not trust easily. They verified, calculated, and confirmed. But here was one of his researchers trusting a human to do something that went against all training. Hours passed. The housing slowly locked into place. Each section required careful alignment and welding. T-Min's hands were steady despite the pressure. He had done difficult repairs before, but never with so many lives depending on success. "Final section in position," he announced, beginning primary welds. This was the moment of greatest danger. The welding process created heat and stress. If the housing cracked or shifted, the reactor would breach. Everyone held their breath. T-Min worked with intense focus. His welding tool moved in steady patterns. The metal glowed bright, then cooled. One weld complete, then another, and another. Halfway through the welding, alarms blared. A stress fracture was forming in one of the hull sections. The improvised housing was starting to fail. "Abort the installation," Thex said immediately. "The math was correct. This cannot work." "Wait," T-Min said. He was studying the readouts. "Dong Hyun, can you access the external support struts?" "Yes, but they're not designed to support this kind of load," Dong Hyun replied. "I know," T-Min said. "But if we reinforce the weak section with the struts, it might hold long enough to complete the welds." "Might?" Thex asked. "You are basing survival on might." "Do you have a better idea?" Jaiwon asked. When Thex didn't answer, she nodded to Dong Hyun. "Do it." Dong Hyun moved quickly. He rerouted the support struts, using them in ways they were never intended. The stress readings changed. The fracture stopped growing. "It's holding," Fen said, watching the sensors with amazement. "It should not work, but it is holding." "That's becoming a theme around here," Hana said with a nervous laugh. T-Min resumed welding. Each connection had to be perfect now. There was no room for error. Sweat dripped down his face inside his helmet, but his hands never wavered. 1 hour passed, then 2. The tension in the engineering bay was thick enough to cut. The Valkyrie researchers watched every reading with intense focus. They had stopped suggesting that the humans abort. They simply helped however they could. "Final weld complete," T-Min finally announced. He stepped back and checked his work 3 times. "Housing is secure. All stress points are within acceptable ranges." "Define acceptable," Thex said. "It won't explode," T-Min said. "That's acceptable in my book." "Now comes the real test," Jaiwon said. "We need to bring the reactor online, T-Min." The engineer moved to the control panel. "Starting initialization sequence. Everyone should probably take cover behind something solid." "If this explodes, there is no cover that will save us," Thex pointed out. "True," Jaiwon admitted, "but it makes me feel better to suggest it anyway." T-Min began the power-up sequence. The reactor hummed to life. Low at first, then building. The improvised housing vibrated. Everyone watched the stress readings climb. "Temperature nominal," a Valkyrie called out. "Pressure within limits," another added. "Reactor core stable," Fen reported. The humming grew stronger. Lights began flickering on throughout the station. Systems that had been dead for days suddenly sparked to life. The main displays activated. The air handling systems resumed their normal cycle. "Power output at 20%, T-Min said, increasing to 40%. The housing groaned under the load, but it held. The welds showed strain but remained intact. 60% power, T-Min continued. All systems green. "This is impossible," Thex whispered. "The calculation said this would fail." 80% power, T-Min announced. Housing integrity holding steady. Jaiwon watched the displays with fierce pride. Her crew had done the impossible. They had built something that shouldn't work and made it function anyway. 100% power, T-Min said. "Reactor is fully online, all systems operational." For a moment, there was total silence. Then the Valkyrie researchers erupted in what must have been their version of cheering. They made clicking sounds, and their limbs moved in rapid patterns. Thex approached Jaiwon slowly. The Valkyrie leader's face showed something the captain had never seen before. Emotion. Real, genuine emotion. You did it, Thex said. You saved our station. You saved our research. You saved lives that will never know your names. We did it together, Jaiwan corrected. Your people helped. They learned to work our way. No, Thex said firmly. We learned to work the human way. There is a difference. You taught us that logic is not enough, that determination matters, that sometimes you must try even when failure seems certain. Fen rushed over to Hana. We have power. The research data is safe. The atmospheric purification work can continue. Hana smiled at the young researcher's excitement. See, I told you humans don't give up easily. You did more than not give up, Fen said. You showed us how to hope again. Dong Hyun, still nursing his bruised head, laughed. We just fixed your reactor. You're making it sound more dramatic than it is. You do not understand, Fen said seriously. For days we sat in that sealed room, waiting to die because the math said we could not survive. You came and ignored the math. You tried anyway. You showed us that calculations are not destiny. That is more valuable than any repair. T-Min checked the reactor readings one more time. Everything was stable. The impossible repair was complete. He turned to his captain. Station is saved, Captain. What now? Jaiwan looked around the engineering bay. She saw her crew, tired but triumphant. She saw the Valkyrie researchers, transformed from hopeless victims to energized survivors. She saw a future where thousands of lives would be saved because of the work done here. Now we finish the job properly, Jaiwan said. We've got a station to bring back to full operations. Let's make sure everything works perfectly before we leave. That could take weeks, Thex said. Then it takes weeks, Jaiwan replied. We don't do halfway repairs, we do it right. Thex nodded. I am beginning to understand the human way of doing things. It is not logical, it is not efficient, but perhaps it is better. It's different, Jaiwan said. Not better or worse, just different, and sometimes different is exactly what you need. 3 weeks later, Research Station Gamma 7 was not just functional. It was thriving. The human crew had repaired every system, upgraded several that were outdated, and even improved the overall efficiency of the station's operations. Jaiwan stood in the main observation deck, looking out at the stars. The view was beautiful now that the station was properly lit and powered. Behind her, she could hear the sounds of the Valkyrie researchers working. They moved with energy and purpose that would have seemed impossible a month ago. T-Min joined her at the window. All repairs complete, Captain. We can head home whenever you're ready. Are we sure everything works? Jaiwan asked. Tested everything 3 times, T-Min confirmed. This station will run smoothly for years. That improvised reactor housing is actually more stable than the original design. Go figure. Humans have a gift for making broken things work better than new, Jaiwan said with a smile. Thex approached them carrying a data pad. Captain Jaiwan, I have prepared the payment for your services. The Valkyrie Coalition has added a substantial bonus for saving the research data. We were just doing our job, Jaiwan said. No, Thex said firmly. You did far more than your job. You taught us something we had forgotten. If I may, I have a request. Go ahead, Jaiwan said. Thex hesitated, which was unusual for the logical Valkyrie. The Coalition wants to understand the human repair method, not your technical skills, though those are impressive. They want to know how you approach problems, how you maintain hope when logic says to give up, how you inspire others to keep trying. Jaiwan laughed softly. That's not really a method, it's just how we are. But it can be learned, Fen said, joining the conversation. The young researcher had become close with the human crew over the past weeks. I have learned it. When problems arise now, I do not immediately calculate failure probability. I think about what might work if I try. And how's that working out for you? Hana asked, walking over. Better than I expected, Fen admitted. Yesterday, a data processor failed. The standard protocol said to replace it, which would take 3 days for a new part to arrive. Instead, I examined it and found a single damaged component. I replaced just that piece with a part from a different system. It should not have worked, but it did. You're learning to improvise, Dong Hyan said proudly. That's very human of you. I take that as a high compliment, Finn said. Thex looked at Jaiwan seriously. Captain, the Velkari Coalition has authorized me to make an unusual request. We would like to hire human repair crews for other stations and facilities. Not because our own engineers are incapable, but because we need what humans bring beyond technical skill. You want us to teach your people to be more human? Jaiwan asked with amusement. In a sense, yes, Thex said. We have become too dependent on calculations and probabilities. We have forgotten how to hope, how to try when logic says to stop. You have shown us the value of determination over pure mathematics. Before Jaiwan could respond, her ship's communication system chimed. She answered it, and a holographic display appeared showing a message from the steady hand. Captain, you're receiving multiple contract requests, the ship's AI reported. They're coming from different species across this sector, all requesting specifically for human repair teams. What kind of repairs? T-Min asked. The AI processed the requests. Interesting. Many of them are not primarily technical. There's a research facility requesting help motivating staff after a failed project. A mining station asking for help rebuilding team morale after an accident. A diplomatic outpost wanting assistance with improving cooperation between species. Jaiwan looked at her crew with surprise. They're not asking us to fix machines. They're asking us to fix people. Word has spread quickly, Thex explained. Several of my researchers have communicated with colleagues on other stations. They have shared what happened here, how humans saved not just our station but our spirits. Many are interested in experiencing this human approach to problems. We're repair technicians, not therapists, Dong Hyan said. You are more than you realize, Fen said. You came to fix life support systems, but what you truly repaired was hope. That is far more valuable than any machine. Hana read through the requests. Some of these are offering incredible payment just for us to show up and help with basic problems. Because they are not basic problems, Thex said. They are fundamental problems of spirit and determination, problems that my people and many others have struggled with. We are good at logic and calculation, but we have lost something important, something humans still possess. And what's that? Jaiwan asked. The refusal to accept impossible, Thex said simply. The ability to look at certain failure and try anyway. The capacity to inspire others through example rather than through mathematical proof. Jaiwan looked at her small crew. They were just 3 people and herself, 4 humans with some tools and a stubborn refusal to quit. Somehow, that had been enough to change an entire station full of researchers. I don't know if we can help all these people, Jaiwan admitted. We're not miracle workers. Yes, you are, Fen said. Perhaps you do not see it because it comes naturally to you, but to us, what you do is miraculous. You take impossible situations and make them possible. A soft chime indicated another incoming message. This one was from the Anthropic Coalition, a massive alliance of species that governed much of this region of space. Jaiwan opened it and read quickly. Her eyes widened. They're offering to sponsor human repair teams across all member worlds. They want to study human problem-solving methods and incorporate them into their own training programs. Will you accept? Thex asked. Jaiwan looked at T-Min, Hana, and Dong Hyan. They nodded together. We're repair technicians, Jaiwan said. If something is broken, we fix it. Doesn't matter if it's a reactor or a research team's morale. If we can help, we will. There is one more thing, Thex said. He pulled up a display showing the atmospheric purification research. Thanks to your repairs, we completed our work 3 days ago. The cure for the atmospheric disease is ready for distribution. It will be deployed to all affected Velkari colonies within the month. How many lives will it save? Hana asked quietly. Approximately 47,000 in the first year alone, Thex said. More in following years as the treatment becomes standard. Those lives exist because you refuse to let us wait for death in that sealed room. The weight of those words settled over the humans. 47,000 lives. They had come to fix some air filters and power systems. Instead, they had saved tens of thousands of people who would never know their names. I don't think I'll ever look at a repair contract the same way again, Dong Hyan said softly. None of us will, T-Min agreed. Jaiwan watched the Velkari researchers working in the background. They moved differently now, with purpose and energy. They had learned that hope was more powerful than calculation, that trying was better than accepting defeat, that sometimes the most illogical choice was the right one. 6 months later, Jaiwan received a message from Fen. The young researcher was now leading their own team, using human-inspired methods to solve problems across the Velkari coalition. The message included a photo of Fen wearing a patch on their research uniform. It was the emblem of the steady hand. You taught me that impossible is just a word, Fen's message read. Thank you for showing us how to hope. Jaiwan shared the message with her crew. They were aboard the steady hand, traveling to their next job. Another repair contract. Another broken system that needed fixing. But they knew now that they were fixing more than machines. They were carrying something precious across the galaxy. Something uniquely human that other species had forgotten or never learned. The willingness to try when logic said to stop. The determination to help when calculation said it was pointless. The ability to look at darkness and choose to light a candle anyway. You know what the funny thing is, Hana said as they reviewed the new contract. We never trained for any of this. We just showed up and did what felt right. That's the human way, Jaiwan said. We don't calculate whether we should help, we just help. We don't measure the odds of success, we just try, and somehow it's enough. More than enough, T-Min said, looking at the messages still coming in. Requests from dozens of species, offers from governments and organizations, all wanting what humans could provide. Not advanced technology, not superior calculations, just the simple, stubborn human refusal to give up. The ability to look at broken things, broken people, broken hopes and say, we can fix this. Jaiwan smiled as the steady hand jumped to faster-than-light travel, carrying them toward their next job. Somewhere out there, something was broken. Someone needed help, and 4 humans with some tools and a lot of determination were on their way. They had come to make repairs. What they had provided was something the galaxy couldn't measure or calculate, something that couldn't be quantified in equations or probabilities. They had provided hope, and in a vast, cold universe, that was the most valuable repair of all. The Velkari had said it was just repairs. What humanity provided was truly unbelievable, not because of the technical skill, but because of something simpler and more powerful. The human heart that refused to let broken things stay broken. The human spirit that saw impossible and tried anyway. That was the real repair, and the galaxy was better for it.